My name is Amara Johnson, and 3 years ago, a man locked me inside a walk-in freezer and watched me have a panic attack through the window. When I finally escaped and ran to my manager, shaking, crying, barely able to breathe, he looked at me and said 6 words I will never forget. He was just playing around. Playing. Like my terror was a game. Like my inability to breathe was entertainment. Like the 17 minutes I spent trapped in that freezer, pounding on the door, screaming until my voice cracked, were just a funny little joke. But here is what my manager did not know. My phone had been recording in my apron pocket for the last 43 minutes, and that recording would eventually cost the restaurant $420,000, the cook his job, and my manager his entire career. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the night that changed everything. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. Please write in the comments what city or country you are watching from right now. I read every single comment and it means more than you know. Also, have you ever been in a situation where someone made you feel unsafe and the person supposed to protect you just told you to deal with it? Have you ever been told that your fear was an overreaction? Share your story in the comments. Your experience matters. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. And if you know someone who has faced this kind of treatment at work, please share this video with them. Now, let me tell you what happened. I started working at Carmine's Steakhouse in the summer of 2019. It was one of those classic American steakhouses with dark wood paneling, leather booths, and the kind of heavy menu that required 2 hands to hold. The tips were good. The customers were mostly business people on expense accounts, who did not care if the wine was $40 or $400. For a 26-year-old server trying to pay off student loans, it felt like winning a small lottery. The front of house staff was mostly women. The back of house was mostly men. And somewhere in between, in that strange territory where the kitchen met the dining room, was a cook named Derek Hollins. Derek was 42 years old. He had worked at Carmine's for 11 years. He had a wife, 2 kids, and according to the other cooks, he was the best grill man they had ever seen. He could cook a ribeye to perfect medium rare while carrying on 3 conversations and making inappropriate jokes about every woman who walked past the kitchen window. That was how he was described to me on my first day. Good cook. Likes to joke around. Do not take it personally. Do not take it personally. I heard that phrase so many times during my first month that it started to feel like a company motto. Derek would whistle at servers as we passed. Do not take it personally. Derek would make comments about our bodies as we reached for plates. Do not take it personally. Derek would stand too close, breathe too loud, let his hands linger too long when passing dishes. Do not take it personally. The other servers had developed strategies. Walk fast, keep your eyes down. Never go to the kitchen alone if you can help it. Never. I learned the rhythms of avoidance like I was learning a new language. Clock Derek's position before entering the kitchen. Time your ticket pickups for when he was busy at the grill. If he called your name, pretend you did not hear. If he cornered you, laugh and keep moving. If he touched you, step away like it was an accident. We were all fluent in that language. Every woman in that restaurant spoke it like natives. But there was one thing we could not avoid, and that was the walk-in freezer. The walk-in freezer was in the back of the kitchen, past the prep stations, past the dish pit, past Derek's grill. Every server had to go in there multiple times per shift. Ice for the bar, frozen desserts for the display, extra butter when the kitchen ran low. It was a small room, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet, with metal shelving on 3 walls and a heavy door that closed automatically. The light inside was a single flickering bulb that had never been replaced. And the cold. God, the cold. Even in summer, even when the kitchen was 100 degrees and sweat was dripping down your back, Walking into that freezer felt like stepping into another world. The air hit your lungs like a punch. Your skin prickled. Your breath came out in clouds. Most of us grabbed what we needed and got out fast. But sometimes the door stuck. Not jammed exactly, just slow to open from the inside. You had to push hard, lean your shoulder into it, wait for the latch to catch. It took maybe 5 seconds longer than it should have. 5 seconds that felt like 5 minutes when you were alone in that cold, dark room. I mentioned it to my manager once, during my 3rd week. The walk-in door sticks sometimes. Should we get it looked at? His name was Paul Brennan, 45 years old, assistant general manager. He had been at Carmine's for 7 years and had the kind of permanent frown that suggested he had seen everything and been impressed by none of it. He barely looked up from his clipboard. "It's fine. Just push harder." That was Paul's answer to everything. Push harder. Work faster. Smile bigger. Do not make problems where there are not any. So I pushed harder. We all did. We pushed through the sticky door, pushed through the comments, pushed through the hands that found reasons to touch us, pushed through all of it. Because that was the job. That was what we signed up for. That was just how things were. For 3 years, I pushed. And then came the night of October 14th. The night I stopped pushing and started recording. October 14th was a Friday. The restaurant was packed. Every table full. A 45-minute wait at the bar. The kitchen running at full capacity. I had been on my feet for 6 hours straight, and my section was a nightmare. 2 birthday parties, a table of 12 businessmen who could not stop ordering specialty cocktails, and 1 couple who had been nursing the same bottle of wine for 3 hours while complaining about everything from the bread temperature to the lighting angle. By 9:30, I was exhausted. My feet ached. My smile felt painted on. And I needed more butter for table 18, the birthday party that had decided everyone needed extra butter for their steaks. Extra butter was in the walk-in. I knew that. I also knew that Derek had been watching me all night. I had felt his eyes tracking me across the dining room, through the kitchen, back again. Every time I picked up food from the window, he was there, leaning, watching, smiling that smile that never reached his eyes. I had been avoiding the walk-in all night, sending other servers, making excuses. But at 9:30, everyone was busy, and the birthday party needed their butter. And sometimes, you just have to do the thing you have been dreading all day. I grabbed my phone before I left my station. I do not know why exactly. Maybe instinct. Maybe paranoia. Maybe some part of me knew what was coming. I opened the voice recorder app, pressed the red button, and slipped it into my apron pocket. Then I walked to the kitchen. Derek was at his grill, flipping steaks when I passed. He did not look up. I felt myself relax slightly. Maybe tonight would be fine. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe everything would be okay. The walk-in was at the back of the kitchen, past the prep stations, past the dish pit. I walked fast, head down, purpose in my steps. Do not make eye contact. Do not slow down. Do not give anyone a reason to notice you. I pushed open the freezer door. The cold hit me immediately, sharp and biting. The single bulb flickered once, then steadied. I stepped inside, letting the door close behind me, and scanned the shelves for the butter. It was on the middle shelf, behind a stack of frozen bread loaves. I reached for it. And that is when I heard the door open behind me. I turned. Derek was standing in the doorway, that same smile on his face. "Hey there," he said. "Need some help finding something?" "I am fine," I said, clutching the butter. "Just grabbing this." I moved toward the door. He did not move. He just stood there, blocking the exit, his body filling the frame. "Excuse me," I said. He still did not move. "You know," he said, voice low, "you have been avoiding me all night." I notice these things. I am not avoiding you, I said. My heart was starting to beat faster. I just have a lot of tables. He took a step into the freezer. The door was still open behind him, but barely. Come on, Amara. We both know that is not true. You think I do not see the way you look at me? I do not look at you, I said. I was backing up now, pressing against the cold metal shelves. Please move. I need to get back to my tables. He took another step. Then, another. The door began to swing closed. I lunged for it. He was faster. His arm shot out, palm flat against the door, and he pushed it shut. The latch clicked. The light flickered. And we were alone. The freezer was 8 feet by 10 feet. Derek was 6'2", 240 pounds. I was 5'5", 130. There was nowhere to go. Nowhere to run. Just cold metal shelves and a flickering light, and a man who had decided that tonight, finally, he would corner me somewhere I could not escape. What is the matter? He asked, still smiling. I thought we could have a little privacy. You and me, get to know each other better. Let me out, I said. My voice was shaking. I hated that it was shaking. Please, please let me out. He laughed. A soft, quiet laugh, like I had said something funny. Relax, he said. I am not going to hurt you. I just want to talk. Is that so hard? Yes, I said. I was pressed against the back shelf now. The cold was seeping through my shirt, into my skin, into my bones. Yes, it is. Let me out. Now. He tilted his head, studying me like I was something interesting, something he was considering. You know what your problem is? He said. You are too uptight. You need to learn to have a little fun. This is not fun, I said. This is not funny. Let me out or I will scream. He laughed again. Go ahead. Kitchen is loud. No one will hear you. And even if they do, he shrugged. You know what they will say. Derek was just playing around. He was just joking. Do not take it personally. And that was when the panic started. It did not build slowly. It did not creep up on me. It hit me all at once, like a wave crashing over my head, pulling me under. My chest tightened. My throat closed. My hands started shaking so hard I dropped the butter and it hit the floor with a thud. I could not breathe. I could not breathe. I was gasping, hyperventilating, clawing at my throat like I could physically pry it open. The cold was everywhere, in my lungs, in my blood, in my brain. The walls were closing in. The light was flickering. And Derek was just standing there, watching. What is wrong with you? He said. I could barely hear him over the roaring in my ears. Hey, hey, what is your problem? I collapsed against the shelving. My legs would not hold me. I slid down to the floor, curling into myself, rocking back and forth, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to survive. I do not know how long it lasted. Minutes, hours, an eternity. Time stopped making sense. There was only the cold and the fear and the weight of the air pressing down on me. And then, finally, I heard it. The door opening, light flooding in, voices. One of the other servers, a woman named Jessica, had come looking for me. Table 18 was asking about their butter. She had searched the dining room, the break room, the bathroom. Finally, she thought to check the kitchen. She found Derek leaning against the prep counter, casual, unconcerned, scrolling through his phone. And she found the walk-in door closed with the light on inside. She opened it, and she found me on the floor, shaking, crying, unable to speak. Jessica did not ask questions. She just helped me up, wrapped her arm around me, and led me out of the freezer, past Derek, past the other cooks, through the kitchen, into the back office. She sat me down. She got me water. She waited until I could breathe again. And then, she went to get Paul. I remember the look on his face when he walked in. Not concerned. Not angry. Just annoyed. Like I was creating a problem he would have to solve. "What happened?" he asked. I told him. I told him everything. The doorway. The comments. The way Derek blocked me in. The way he closed the door. The 17 minutes I spent trapped in that freezer while he watched through the window and laughed. Paul listened. He nodded. He made some notes on his clipboard. And then he said, "Are you sure you are not overreacting?" I stared at him. I could not believe what I was hearing. Overreacting? I was locked in a freezer. I had a panic attack. I could not breathe. He sighed. "Look, Amara. Derek has worked here for 11 years. He is a good cook. He has just got a sense of humor that some people do not understand. I am sure he was just playing around." "He was not playing," I said. "He trapped me. He blocked the door. He would not let me leave." Paul shook his head. "That is not how Derek tells it. He says you walked into the walk-in while he was already there, and you freaked out for no reason. He says he did not do anything." "That is a lie," I said. "And I can prove it." I reached into my apron pocket. My fingers closed around my phone. The phone that had been recording for the last 43 minutes. I looked at Paul. I looked at his dismissive face, his crossed arms, his obvious desire to make this problem go away. And something in me shifted. I did not show him the recording. Not yet. Instead, I said, "You know what? Never mind, I am probably just tired. It has been a long night." Paul relaxed visibly. "Right. Right. You have had a tough shift. Go home. Get some rest. We will talk tomorrow if you still feel like there is something to discuss." He left, and I sat there in that back office, alone, thinking about every server who had ever been told do not take it personally, every woman who had been cornered and dismissed, every complaint that had been swept under the rug because the harasser was a good cook, or a good tipper, or a good friend of management. I thought about all of it, and I made a decision. I was done pushing through. I was done staying quiet. I was done being the problem that needed to go away. From that night forward, I would document everything. And when I had enough, I would burn the whole thing down. The next 3 months were the longest of my life. I went back to work. I smiled. I served tables. I acted like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I started carrying my phone in my apron pocket every single shift, recording voice memos every time I entered the kitchen. I bought a small notebook and kept it in my locker. Every incident, every comment, every touch. I wrote it down. Date, time, what happened, who saw it. The pattern was undeniable. October 17th, 8:45 p.m. Derek whistled at me as I passed the grill, called me sweetheart. Paul was standing 3 feet away and said nothing. October 20th, 9:15 p.m. Derek brushed against my hip while handing me a plate. Lingered. Smiled. I moved away. He laughed. October 23rd, 7:30 p.m. Derek followed me to the ice machine. Stood too close. Asked what I was doing after work. I said I had plans. He said I should change them. October 27th, 10 p.m. Derek cornered me by the dish pit, put his hand on the wall next to my head. Said I looked stressed and offered to help me relax. A busboy saw. Said nothing. October 30th, 8 p.m. Derek made a comment about my body in front of 3 other cooks. They all laughed. I kept walking. But I was not the only one. That was the other thing I discovered during those months. I was not the only one Derek had targeted. There was Jessica, the server who had found me in the freezer. She had her own stories. The time Derek grabbed her wrist when she tried to walk away from a conversation. The time he trapped her in the storage room for 5 minutes, blocking the door, just to see what she would do. The time he told her, in graphic detail, what he wanted to do to her after work. She had reported it once. Paul told her Derek was just being friendly. There was Maria, a hostess who had quit 6 months before I started. Jessica stayed in touch with her. Maria said Derek had grabbed her so hard once that he left bruises. She showed them to Paul. He said she must have bumped into something and forgotten. She quit the next day. There was a server named Tanya who worked weekends. Derek had followed her to her car after closing one night. She did not report it because she knew no one would believe her. One by one they came forward. Not publicly, not officially. Just quietly, in the break room, in the parking lot, in hurried conversations during shift changes. They told me their stories. They shared their pain. And every single one of them said the same thing. Paul knows. Everyone knows. No one does anything. Because Derek is a good cook, and finding a good cook is hard, and at the end of the day, we are all replaceable. That was the word they used. Replaceable. Like we were inventory. Like our safety was a line item on a budget sheet, easily crossed out if it became inconvenient. I documented it all. Every story, every witness, every pattern. I recorded Paul dismissing complaints. I recorded Derek making comments. I recorded the other cooks laughing along. By January, I had 47 recordings, 112 documented incidents, and written statements from 4 other current and former employees. And then I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen. She specialized in workplace harassment cases. She had steel gray hair, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, and the kind of calm, methodical energy that made you believe nothing could ever rattle her. I spent 2 hours in her office, playing recordings, showing documentation, walking her through the timeline. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "This is one of the most thorough cases I have ever seen. Most people come to me with memories. You came with evidence." "Thank you," I said. "I learned a long time ago that no one believes women, they believe recordings." Patricia nodded slowly. "Here is what I recommend. We file a complaint with the EEOC, that is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They investigate workplace harassment claims at the federal level. Given your documentation, I expect they will find a clear pattern of hostile work environment, harassment, and employer negligence." I asked her what would happen next. She said it depended on a lot of factors. Whether the restaurant cooperated, whether they tried to settle, whether they fought. But one thing was certain. When the EEOC saw those recordings, when they heard Derek's voice and Paul's dismissals, there would be consequences. I asked her how long it would take. She smiled, just slightly. "Justice is slow," she said. "But your evidence is strong. They cannot bury this. They cannot make it go away. And when the investigation is done, everyone who told you he was just playing will have to answer for it." The EEOC complaint was filed on February 3rd. The restaurant received notice on February 10th. And by February 11th, everything changed. I was working the lunch shift when Paul called me into his office. His face was a color I had never seen before. Something between red and gray, like a bruise that had not decided which way to go. "Sit down," he said. His voice was tight. I sat. "You filed a complaint," he said. I did. He was quiet for a long moment, then, "Why did you not just come to me?" "I did come to you," I said, "multiple times. You told me I was overreacting. You told me Derek was just playing around. You told me to push harder and not make problems." He did not have an answer for that. The next few weeks were chaos. The EEOC sent an investigator. Her name was Margaret Collins. She was in her 50s, with a no-nonsense demeanor and a briefcase full of forms. She interviewed me first, then Jessica, then the other women who had come forward, then the cooks, then the managers, then the owner. A man named Frank Carmine, who had inherited the restaurant from his father and spent most of his time on a golf course in Florida. Margaret reviewed my recordings, all 47 of them. She reviewed my documentation, all 112 incidents. She reviewed the written statements, the photographs of the walk-in, the maintenance logs showing the sticky door had been reported multiple times and never fixed. By March, she had compiled a report that was, according to my lawyer, devastating. The findings were clear. Derek Hollins had engaged in a sustained pattern of sexual harassment against multiple female employees over a period of at least 5 years. Paul Brennan had received numerous complaints and had systematically dismissed them, creating a hostile work environment. The restaurant had failed to provide adequate harassment training, failed to maintain a safe workplace, and failed to address known safety issues like the malfunctioning freezer door. The EEOC recommended mediation. The restaurant's lawyers recommended settling. Frank Carmine, who had flown up from Florida looking like a man whose golf game had been permanently interrupted, recommended whatever would make this go away fastest. But here is the thing about consequences. They do not just go away. Derek was fired on March 15th. Not quietly, not with a retirement party and a gold watch. Fired, escorted out by security. His final paycheck mailed to his home address. His wife, I heard later, did not know about any of it. Not the harassment, not the complaints, not the pattern that had been going on for over a decade. She found out when a reporter from the local news called asking for comment. Paul was demoted. Not fired, because apparently 11 years of enabling harassment only gets you demoted, but stripped of his management title. He was reassigned to inventory management, which meant he spent his days counting napkins in a basement office with no windows. Last I heard, he quit 6 months later. Could not handle the humiliation. The restaurant itself faced fines totaling $175,000. They were required to implement mandatory harassment training, establish a third-party reporting system, and submit to quarterly audits for the next 2 years. Their insurance premiums tripled. Their reputation cratered. The local paper ran a story with the headline, "Local Steakhouse Settles Harassment Case, Names Released." For 3 weeks, they could not fill a reservation. And me? I received a settlement of $420,000, more money than I had ever seen in my life, more than enough to pay off my student loans, put a down payment on a small apartment, and take 6 months off to recover from the trauma of the last 4 years. But the money was not the point. The money was never the point. The point was that for 3 years, I was told my fear was an overreaction. For 3 years, I was told to push harder, smile bigger, not make problems. For 3 years, I was told that my panic attack in that freezer was just me being dramatic, that Derek was just playing, that I needed to learn to take a joke. And for 3 years, I documented everything. Every comment, every touch, every dismissal, every lie. And when the time came, I did not have to convince anyone to believe me. I had the evidence. I had the recordings. I had the truth. I left Carmine's Steakhouse in April. My last shift was on a Tuesday. Nobody threw me a party. Nobody said goodbye. The other servers just nodded at me as I walked out. Small nods of recognition, of respect, of something that looked a lot like hope. Jessica caught me in the parking lot. She hugged me tight. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." "We did it," I told her. "All of us. Every woman who came forward. Every story that was shared. We did it together." She pulled back, tears in her eyes. "What are you going to do now?" I thought about it for a moment. Now? I am going to find a restaurant where when someone locks me in a freezer, the manager does not tell me it was just a game. She laughed. "Let me know when you find it. I will be first in line to apply." I found that restaurant 6 months later. A small bistro downtown, owned by a woman named Sarah who had spent 20 years in the industry and had zero tolerance for harassment. Zero. On my first day during training, she said something I will never forget. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, anyone at all, you tell me immediately. I do not care if they are a customer, a cook, the mayor of this city, or my own mother. You report it, and I will handle it. I almost cried. I actually almost cried right there in the middle of training, because that was all I had ever wanted. Not special treatment, not a lawsuit, not a settlement check. Just to be believed. Just to be safe. Just to be treated like my fear mattered. A year has passed since then. Carmine's Steakhouse closed permanently 8 months after I left. The combination of fines, bad publicity, and staff turnover was too much. The building sits empty now, a for-lease sign in the dusty window. I drove past it last week. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel satisfied. I just felt tired. Tired of all the years I spent pushing through. Tired of all the women who are still pushing through right now, in restaurants and bars and diners all over this country, smiling through their fear because someone told them not to take it personally. But I also felt something else, something like hope. Because here is what I learned in that freezer, in that cold, dark room where I could not breathe and no one would help me. I learned that silence protects abusers. I learned that documentation is power. I learned that when they tell you he was just playing, what they mean is your fear does not matter to us. And I learned that it does matter. It all matters. Every panic attack, every comment, every time someone blocks your exit and tells you to relax, it matters because we matter. Our safety matters. Our fear matters. So if you are watching this and you have ever been told to just deal with it, I want you to know something. You do not have to deal with it. There are people who will believe you. There are lawyers who will fight for you. There are laws designed to protect you. And there is power in documentation. Start recording. Start writing things down. Keep.
Tracks marred the path. Back in the study, Poirot spotted another clue. A scattering of cigarette ash near the tunnel's entrance, grey and fresh. Reginald's brand, Jap noted, sniffing it. He smokes those Turkish ones. Distinctive. Confronted later in the billiard room, Reginald lounged against the green baize table, cue in hand, but his nonchalance faltered. Ash? Could be mine. I smoke everywhere. But I wasn't in the study. Father locked himself in. Perhaps I dropped it earlier in the day. His alibi held, but suspicion lingered like the haze from his cigarette. Poirot's investigation branched out, weaving through the manor's labyrinthine corridors. In Dr. Thorne's guest room, a search, authorized by Jap, uncovered a small vial of poison in his medical bag, empty but residue-laden. "Arsenic," Jap queried, holding it up. Thorne, summoned, folded his arms defensively. "For my experiments, rodent control on my estate. Perfectly legal. I didn't poison Harrington. He was stabbed, remember?" A red herring, perhaps, but it painted Thorne as capable of foul play. His medical knowledge a double-edged scalpel. In Miss Clara Beaumont's boudoir, amid powders and perfumes, Poirot found a pearl earring under the edge of the desk in the study. Wait, no, it was in her jewellery box, but an identical one had been discovered beneath Harrington's desk during the initial sweep. "Lost days ago," she claimed dramatically, clutching her throat. "Someone must have planted it to implicate me." Archie and I were close, but not murderously so. Amelia's room yielded a diary, hidden in a drawer, its pages filled with fervent entries. "Father's tyranny must end. I cannot lose Geoffrey." A motive laid bare, but was it evidence or mere venting? Amelia, tearful, admitted the words but denied action. I wrote in anger. We all have dark thoughts. Lady Evelyn's alibi began to crack under gentle probing. A housemaid, questioned discreetly, recalled seeing her ladyship near the study corridor around 11:30, not in her room as claimed. I was restless, monsieur, Evelyn confessed in the conservatory, amid exotic palms and blooming orchids. The argument with Archibald earlier, I wandered the halls, seeking solace. The silk scrap matched her gown precisely, but she swore no tear occurred. Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room that evening, the fire crackling as tension mounted. Mes amis, clues emerged like stars in the night sky. The mirror's secret passage, known to some, yet unused. The muddy prints, suggesting outdoor access, but erased. The ash pointing to Reginald, the vial to Thorne, the earring to Beaumont, the diary to Amelia, the fabric to Lady Evelyn, and Jenkins. Your knowledge of the house is unparalleled. Perhaps you aided entry. Accusations flew. Reginald blamed Thorne for old grudges. Amelia accused Beaumont of blackmail. Thorne suggested Reginald's debts drove him. Beaumont theatricalized innocence. Evelyn remained stoic.
Just fired. Until next time.